everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Tammy, I'm the Siberian Wind. I'm glad you guys are here today. I see that we've got Andrea from Mama J Enterprises, Judy, Glenda, and Melanie, or Melina. I apologize, I'm still working on pronunciations this morning. So good morning to all of you. Good morning. So this is the last class in the series to make this quilt. This is the Bauble Quilt. This is a quilt that I designed. I did design it using an Accuquilt Studio die. Welcome in, Helen. Like I said, I'm working on pronunciations this morning. Lisa's also joined the chat. Welcome in. Oh, yeah, absolutely, Lisa. And you guys, anybody who is in the path of any kind of weather, my heart is with you, and I will be thinking about you guys. I will be thinking about you guys. It is not easy or fun to go through that kind of stuff. So it is what it is, right? You know, you can't change Mother Nature. You can't change what is happening within the next 24 hours. But you can come here and hang out and de-stress from it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to de-stress with some fabric and some loving. All right. So I apologize. I was looking away. I have been working to press. Okay. This is one block in this quilt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up on the wall. And this is kind of why I have the camera positioned the way that I do, so that way I could put as much on the board as I could, so you guys can kind of see how this comes together. Now this is a 12-inch finished block, so as its current size, this should be 12.5 inches. So I do have both patterns issued out. So there's a free version. It will be a much smaller block. It'll make an 8-inch block. This makes a 12-inch block, and this is with the studio die that I was cutting with. There is an Accuquilt die for the go. So my pattern that is a purchasable pattern is available already. I did get that posted up last night. The link's in below the video, and it's all 3 of the video series. So whether you're on class 1, class 2, or class 3, the links will be in the description of the video. There's 2 options. You can download a free version that gives you a very similar quilt, but it's going to be a much smaller quilt. I issued the pattern out. This is a 3x3 quilt here, so it's 9 blocks. The pattern that I issued out is a 4x4. It makes a 48-inch square quilt. That is before you add borders. So if you want to add borders, you absolutely can, but there's no requirement for you to do that. Now I am actually going to, am I going to rotate that block, or am I going to leave it? I'm going to leave it. I'm kind of liking the way that that's looking, so I'm going to leave it. So we're going to work on assembling that. So after class 2, what you should end up with is a massive stack of chisel pieces with triangle pieces on them, and you will have them in reverse. So half of your fabrics will be this direction, half of your fabrics will be this direction. Okay, that's what you should have ended up with after class 2. So if you did miss the information on how to get that far, please go back and watch classes 1 and 2 if you have not seen either one of those, so that you get the cutting instructions and all of that, or you see how I cut everything. Now cutting instructions are available on the patterns as well. Now I will say this, I was planning for the pattern to be about $1. Unfortunately, the website that I am using does not let me go that low on the price. Let me actually pull up the site. It gave me the option to go to $3. That was the least expensive option to be able to issue that pattern out. And if you are using an iPhone and you are using the app, this website that my pattern is on is called Patreon. Patreon. If you are using the iPhone app or iOS app, you will be paying $4.50. That is due to Apple. That is not due to anything that I have control over. So the pattern for if you use a browser that is not on an Apple device, then you can absolutely download it for $3 for this size version, or well, the 4x4 version of this. The other is, you can do the $3 version through a browser, but I'm not sure how a MacBook works on that. But if you do have to use an app, an iOS app, it does charge an extra $1.50. That's thanks to Apple. Judy says that she's going to watch the replay. Got to run to get dog food, and we'll be back. Absolutely, Judy. Absolutely. And I know a lot of you guys are on the East Coast, and you are in the southeastern East Coast. So if you are in the path, or you're needing to get ready or whatever, don't feel like you have to apologize to me. Weather and all of the stuff that you guys are going to be facing with the weather, the winds, the rain, all of that coming through, you have my sympathy and you have my support, okay? I have been through several myself, and I don't wish it on anyone, but I definitely want you guys to be safe, okay? All right, so I'm going to show you guys what we are doing today, okay? What we are doing today is we are going to be putting these blocks together. And let me actually pull one of each of these up. And I will show you down on the machine here in just a second exactly what this is going to look like on the machine as well. When you are assembling your chisels, half of them in each color is going to be assembled to a light triangle, and half of them are going to be assembled to a dark triangle. So the layout for the block is quite simple. You're going to have your two outer triangles, or two outer chisels are going to face one direction. So these two chisels here and these two chisels here face the same direction. The other two chisels from each colorway are going to face the opposite direction. Now you can reverse these. So if you do not like, if you don't want your light triangles in the middle, or you want to play with your colors, you absolutely can. So these are my inside chisels, okay? And I know it's hard to see on the camera, so you guys will get to see it on this camera here in just a minute. These are my inside triangles, and I'm using my silver sparkle on the outside, and I'm using my gold sparkle on the inside. These are both navy blue colors, so I know that they are appearing much darker on the camera than they are in real life. So your inside triangles are going to, obviously they're going to be on the inside, but they are going to kind of form, it's not really an H, it's not really an S, it's a diagonal down. Your outside triangles are going to just fall in around there. And you just want to make sure that whatever fabrics you're using for your outside stays on your outside. And whatever fabrics you're using for your inside stays on the inside. So I will have some pressing to do as we go. I wrote the pattern correctly, and I didn't even follow my own pattern directions on my pressing. So I'm going to show you guys how that matters. Okay, so my first block, I'm going to have to rip it apart and fix it, but all the other blocks will go together correctly. All right, so who is ready for the fun, for the magic, for the magic? All right, so I'm going to bring you guys down to the machine, And let me bring you guys up so I can see you better. There we go. All right. So when I say my inside fabric, I am talking about this navy with gold dots. Okay? So that is my inside fabric. That is going to go towards this inside section of my block. And you can assemble all of your inside sections of your block and then come back in and put your outsides on. You absolutely can. And that's what I'll probably do for the majority of the quilt, is that I will be doing that over and over and over again, because I have 16 blocks total to assemble, so it's going to take a minute. Okay, so all 4 of these are my inside fabrics, or they have my gold dot fabrics. So these are all going to go towards the inside of my block. So I'm going to pair them up, and you want them to form a point. Okay, so they now form points. This is as simple as that part is. Okay, so you're going to sew these seams. What makes the inside of the block work is that you just turn that unit around. Okay, so you're going to sew this seam and sew that seam, and then when you sew these together, that forms the entire center point of your block. Okay, so that is as simple as that gets. Okay, all right, so one thing that I did put in the description is that the color of, or that I put in the pattern that I didn't do correctly myself, is that the color of your chisel, so the color, like mine are all coral colors, the color of your chisel is what's going to determine which direction you press your seams. Okay, I originally said press all your seams towards the triangles, and that's what I did on all of my gold fabrics. Okay, what that does is that gives you a very bulky seam right here, and we want to avoid the very bulky seam. So what I would actually recommend is take your light colors of your units, whatever you're going to put towards the inside, and you're going to press those towards the chisel. So these are going to go out, these are going to go towards the chisel. And you do that for the whole stack of them. Whether it's this fabric or like my silver one, doesn't matter. It matters what color your chisels are. So I'm going to press these out. That's the direction that they already are pressed. And I'm going to press these towards the chisel. So I'm going to do that real quick, so that way you guys see what it should actually look like. Now you can press these open. However, these are on the bias, and I don't highly recommend pressing open on these, just because you are doing a good stack of them at a time usually. You can press them open, but you do need to make sure that you don't stretch your units. You don't want to stretch your fabrics. Okay? All right, so now these two are pressed towards the chisel, which is going to make a huge difference. All right, so now when I line these up, I'm going to have one seam pressed towards the chisel and one seam pressed towards the triangle. And I am actually going to sew all of mine with the points coming towards me. Okay, so all of your inside units, you're going to put together like this. Okay, so these are going to go inside the center of the block, and you're going to press them in like this. So how is everyone doing? I know that Glenda definitely needs some fabric distraction today, so we're definitely doing fabric distraction. And Andrea has a deadline, so she's sewing today. So I completely understand that. I will be back to doing a tutorial tomorrow. I might even get started on it tonight. I think I'm going to be able to get started on it tonight. But I haven't had a chance to just yet. Have not had a chance to just yet. Alright, so I'm pulling another stack of my chisels that have my gold dots. So this is going to be another center of the quilt piece. Okay? And again, these have the seams pressed towards the triangles, and these need to be pressed towards the chisels. So I'm going to fix my pressing. So this is written correctly in the pattern. I made sure that I was, saying that the chisel determines which direction you press. And I completely messed that up just doing it myself. So even those of us who write the patterns don't always follow our own instructions because we get ahead of ourselves. So don't panic if you get ahead of yourself. It is simple to just go back and repress those seams. Okay? So the pattern that I wrote that is for free does use 2.5 inch strips or 2.5 inch pieces. So the difference is how you form this chisel, because you don't cut it in advance. You draw a diagonal line and sew it, and then you cut it afterwards. So we are having above average temperatures today, you guys. Our temperature is up to 79 here, and it's going to get up into, I think, the 90s, I want to say, is what they were telling me. But I think it'll be at least in the mid 80s today. That is unseasonably warm for September here in Wyoming. At least this part of Wyoming is my understanding. I thought we had a good cold snap come through, and we were going to be okay, and apparently not. So, how many of you guys have been waiting patiently for this video? How many of you guys have been waiting and hoping and praying and be ready for the pattern to come out? The chat is so quiet. I did go by and found something yesterday. Yeah, yesterday that I picked up, and it is a holiday everyday calendar. So every day is apparently a holiday, and this calendar tells you what every day's holiday is. And it does start in 2024, so I will have, coming up, I will start having the holiday every day going on. Now, those of you who do have power, or you are in other parts of the country or whatever, this weekend we do have a Zoom retreat. You do have to sign up by tomorrow evening. So if you go back to Tuesday night's video, there is a link for the Zoom retreat. I did not put it on the class description. I didn't want to add the Zoom retreat registration to a class, but there is a class that you can, or a Zoom retreat that you can sign up for and come hang out this weekend. So those of you who are not going to have power or may not have power, if you do want to sign up in case you do have power, come back up, and you want some distraction, go ahead and go back to Tuesday's video, click that link, and get registered so you guys can see that coming up soon. Alright, so I'm going to do this one last one, and then the rest of these blocks I will wait until later, because I want to get a few in so you guys can see some of the patterns that we're going to do. Glenda says that she's cut 200 circles and 100 4¼ inch batting squares. Okay, so are you doing a yo-yo quilt? What are you doing with these circles? Inquiring minds, I gotta know. I gotta know what's going on with these circles. That sounds exciting. That's a lot of circles to cut out. I think I would have to use an Accuquilt die to cut those circles. I'm not sure that I have the patience to cut that many circles. And actually, I may do a couple more because I want to show you guys, how this pattern really plays out. Laura, welcome in. She says, hi, Tammy and everyone. Welcome, welcome. So we are working on putting that together. So that is the layout of a single block in this quilt. Glenda is making a rag quilt. Oh, exciting. Oh, with circles. That's going to be, I'm going to need to see pictures. I'm going to need to see pictures. All right. And so one last time, you want to make sure that your units that are top left to middle right are pressed towards the triangle, and your chisels that are going the opposite direction, top left to middle, or top right to middle left, are going towards the chisel. So that's what I'm having to go fix. So we are fixing that. And we'll do the same process when we fix the others as well, because I did all of them this way. I did all of them the wrong way. So we will fix them as we go. We will fix them as we go. Can't think of the name. Completely left my brain. No worries. You're in my Facebook, right? If you're not, you can always send me an email with a picture if you want to do it for Sew and Tell. Sew and Tell is coming up October 1st. So we're going to have this Zoom retreat this weekend, and then we are going to go straight into Sew and Tell. And this is the last Sew and Tell to enter for the lap quilt. And then we will start a new cycle after the October Sew and Tell. So there will be another project coming up. I am participating in a Sew Santa gift swap, and my recipient finally received their items, and I started a mystery project, and they are absolutely thrilled with the mystery project. So it's kind of cool that at least I did something that made a hit. Glenda says, need to get me a new camera so I can post pics. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, now the seams on this, I'm going to press these open. So this is the only seam in this quilt that I spend the time pressing open. Does it matter? No. The seams aren't going to attach to anything, but I do feel like it gives the quilt a cleaner look when they are pressed open at this point. This is the only time that I worry about it. All the others, they do very well to be pressed towards a direction, but when these chisels are coming together, making this point down here, I do find that pressing this one seam open makes a huge difference. So let me get you guys out real quick, and I'm going to bring the ironing board over so you guys can see this pressing process, and you guys will probably see my extra chisels sitting here hanging out, but that's okay. We got a long way to go. There's only 16 of these to go. Oh, I am so sorry. I did not realize I didn't bring you guys over like I was planning. So you guys now, I apologize if you got sick. That was not my intent. You guys are now on my ironing board a little bit. Let me bring this down. There we go. All right, so now you guys are on my ironing board. I am so sorry about that. I did not transition over. Yep. Okay, hang on. There we go. There we go. Now I'm seeing what you guys are seeing. Okay. So this is like I said, this is the only seam that in this quilt that I worry about pressing open. Every other seam is pressed to a side. Okay. And I don't know that I put this in the pattern. So it'll be up to your judgment on what you feel like you want to do. But if you look here, that seam right up here, because we went up with this one and down with this one, this is actually really flat. So it comes out beautifully and then gives you a nice crisp 1/4 inch to save your point. So that will salvage your point when it comes down to it. Now I do have steam set on my iron, so you guys will hear my iron pushing out some steam, and it may distort my fabric just a little bit, but this is going for a baby, and I think she will be perfectly happy either way. Jody from Quilt Squirrel is here. She says, hello all. Welcome in, Jody. Glad you made it in. Thank you, thank you. We are working on the center point of the block that you see up here on the wall. This is the Bauble Quilt, as the name of the name of the live says. And there's 2 versions of the pattern available. And I do already have those posted up. The purchase version is available on a site called Patreon. It's Patreon. I provided a link to both the free version and the purchase version. The purchase version is $3 for those who have an Android or use a PC. If you use the Apple app, the iOS app, for Patreon or for downloading content, you may be required to pay $4.50. That is out of my control. $3 was the lowest that Patreon would let me go. But the purchase version has this size chisel. And it has actual templates that you can use if you would prefer to use templates to cut out your pieces. Okay, the templates are really easy to cut out, but because I have to put in a lot of the extra work in order to make them available for you, that's why we went with a purchased pattern, mainly so I can track how many of them get sold. And that's really all there is to it. I'm just trying to see if you guys want the purchase pattern with the templates. I just want to see if that's going to be a deal. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I'm only the $3. I'm only going to get less than $1, I think, out of each of those. So it's not going to be a lot going to me. A lot of it is going to the site, is my understanding. Or a good portion of it goes to the site, the hosting site. But it's the lowest price that they would allow me to use. They used to allow me to use whatever pricing I wanted, and now they don't. Now there is a minimum, which is kind of rough. You do not need to necessarily subscribe to my Patreon account. If you do subscribe to the Patreon account, any and all patterns that I issue up to the Patreon account do become free. So I'm going to probably do a couple of other subscription levels so that if you're in one class, you get all the smaller patterns for free. Bigger class gets all the other. I don't know. I don't know exactly how I'm going to set that up yet. So you may have to bear with me a little bit while I am figuring out the kinks on that system. I've had my Patreon account for a really long time. There are posts up there, I believe, from 2012 or 2013, about the time that UFO that I just finished recently was going through. So I've had the site for a while, but I haven't really used it in a long time. So please be kind with the content. Glenda says, Cathedral Window Rag Quilt. Had to look up the name. Oh my gosh. That's gonna be, oh my gosh. You're gonna have to share pictures. You're going to have to share pictures. my mind is going a buzz with all the possibilities of how that's going to look. So my plan, my 2025 show quilt plan that you guys are, you'll get to start seeing me putting it together once I've got it, you know, a little bit along the way. It is going to be a biscuit quilt. If you've ever heard of a biscuit quilt or a puff quilt, it is going to be a biscuit type quilt. But it is kind of going to be along the lines of a storm at sea, maybe. Like I'm not going to do directly a storm at sea, but I'm thinking along those kinds of lines. So it's not going to be just a traditional squares to make the puffs. No, I've got to make things difficult. When do I not make things difficult, right? I'm trying to make it easy for you guys, but I make it difficult for myself. That is where my brain goes with all the projects. So Jody, what are you working on today? Laura, do you have any sewing that you're going to get done? Melina, are you working on any sewing today? Or do you have any quilty projects going on? I love to hear about what everybody is working on and what is going on in their world. It's always super exciting to hear, you know, what we're looking at. So I do have an appointment this afternoon, so we'll get to see what they think about this. I do have a second opinion coming up in October to see if I can get rid of the brace then, or if I need surgery. So yeah. I'm looking forward to the appointment this afternoon, seeing if I can get rid of this brace. I am so over the brace. All right, so I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I've got 1 block on the wall, so that'll be 6 blocks. This quilt makes 16. That's how many I'm going to be making. I'm moving the ironing board out of the way, so I do apologize for that. Laura says that she's hoping to sandwich a quilt today, but she's fighting a headache right now. Oh my gosh, that is rough. I am going to move the camera. I apologize. Please don't be watching the camera down here. Don't watch it. Actually, you know what? I think that will help a little bit. There we go. Yay! Not as much movement. Okay. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take 1 block at a time. Okay. So all the rest of these are going to go off to the side. And I'm just going to take 1 block at a time. Now, I do already have the pieces up on the wall. So I can look up on the wall and see which ones go where. But it honestly doesn't matter. Okay. Your inside is always going to have these points going towards each other, and your outside points are always going to be in opposite directions. Okay, so even if I flip this around, it's still the same direction. Okay, as long as you have your opposing points going the opposite way, that's the key. Okay. Now, when you get ready to start assembling your chisels into a layout, do yourself a huge favor, okay? What I recommend that you do, Candace, welcome in, Candace. Glad you are here. What I recommend that you do when you are putting this quilt together, because there's 6 fabrics and it's very easy to get it all wonky, all discombobulated and everything. Do what I've done. Don't worry about the block up top, okay, that's already assembled. Do this right here. Take all 8 pieces. So you've got 2 pieces of each chisel, and those 2 pieces have the opposing background color. in this quilt behind me, this is a teal kind of color, and this is a blue. Okay. You've got a gray, a dark gray, and a light gray attached to these dark blues. You've got a dark gray and a light gray attached to the light blues. You've got a dark gray attached to the teal, a light gray attached to the teal. Or, yeah, light gray attached to the teal, sorry. And then a dark gray attached to the teal and a light gray attached to the teal, okay? So that makes 8 individual pieces, okay? Take and lay out one block, okay? Even if you want to do a half block at the top and a half block at the bottom, lay out a full block, okay? Assemble the majority of, if you're going to do the half blocks, set the pieces for your half blocks aside, because that will be a whole block. You're going to have a whole half of it here and a half of it here. So set your whole blocks aside that you're going to use in the edges if you're going to do a half block assembly, okay? But if you're going to do all whole blocks, which is what most of the times that I've assembled this quilt have done, I've done a whole block. Take all 8 pieces, lay them out, and leave it there, okay? Then all you're doing when you are starting this assembly is you're just looking up at your wall, okay? Whether you put that in front of you, whether you put it off to the side, pin it in place if you have to know that you're not supposed to pick those up, but lay it out. This pattern is very easy to get things messed up, get things in the opposite order. Like, let's say you get half of your blocks assembled and you've accidentally got the outside border color. Mine is silver. You've got your outside border color in where your inside border color is, background color is. Mine is my gold, okay? It's very easy to get that rearranged if you're not paying attention. So the easiest way to pay attention is to lay that out, and then I recommend assembling all of your centerpieces together, because now there's no way I'm going to accidentally put these on the outside of the block, okay? Now you can do a lot of cool things with this now that you've got this assembled the way that it is. You can do, this is basically a house. You can do, Candace is saying, getting a few things prepared in case we lose power from this hurricane. Absolutely, Candace. Absolutely. I completely understand that. Definitely do that. I will say this, the last time I was in a hurricane was Hurricane Zeta, and it was a hurricane when it hit, but very quickly lost power, or lost steam, and we were without power for just over 48 hours, and I was in the process of moving. I definitely sat in the bathtub while I was just, I wasn't sitting in a hot water bathtub because I didn't have hot water because I didn't have electricity. Our hot water heaters were electricity. They weren't gas. But I sat in the bathtub because everything else in my apartment was packed up. We were moving. So I sat in the bathtub with my cross stitch just to cross stitch. I put pillows and blankets and just made it as comfy as could be. I had my little hole to hang out in. But Lisa was saying earlier on her live that they drove around looking for ice and they were wasting gas looking for ice. I was in that boat too. So yeah, I sympathize with you guys. I completely understand. All right, I'm going to grab my other pieces that go with this block. Okay. So all of these pieces down here have this gold print to it. They're all navy. All of my backgrounds are navy for this quilt, but these have gold, okay? So they are my inside backgrounds. My outside backgrounds have this silver print on it. Very, very different. It doesn't appear very different on camera, but it does appear different in the quilt. All right, so one thing that we did earlier, I messed up on pressing. Okay, so we're gonna have to fix our pressing here as well. Okay, so again, the chisels that go top left to bottom to middle right, they are going to go towards the outside, and these are going to go towards the chisel. So now what I messed up earlier, these I've got to press out towards the triangles. I was having to fix the opposite ones for the inside sets, and then I'm having to fix these for the outside sets. So it is written correctly in the pattern. So if you do download the pattern, whether you download the free version or you download the pay for version, it is correct in the pattern. It tells you the chisel color, my coils here. The chisel color determines which direction you press. Okay, I screwed that up. It's correct on the pattern, but it was not correct here. All right, so you've got this is my chisels that match this set right here. Okay, so these are going to come in along this side, and if you notice, there are no triangles here. Okay, so my triangles are going to the outside. Okay, they're kind of forming a cocoon around. And the way you know you've got it right is if I swapped these chisels, they go the wrong direction. You have triangles butting up against triangles floating in the middle of everywhere. We don't want that. So the only way that these go together is that direction. Okay? So you're going with your top colors come out, and then so the bottom colors do the same thing. Okay? Your bottom colors, they only go one direction. You want your triangle points to be on the outside edge of your block. You do not want your triangles butting up against each other. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain piece. Okay? So I have a row of 3 and I have a row of 3. So this is basically now a 6-patch block. It's an uneven 6-patch, but it is a 6-patch block. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my top piece and fold it over. I'm going to take my middle piece, fold it over, and I'm going to take my bottom piece and fold it over. Okay, and I'm going to move this out of my way so that I have the correct sewing direction. So I just moved it. I didn't readjust anything or rearrange. Okay, when you put these together, when you cut with the Accuquilt, if you guys can see, and if you cut with these templates, you're going to have everything line up beautifully. The templates do have the dog ears on them. So that is one reason if you are on the fence about whether you want the purchase version or the free version. The purchase version does have those dog ears. Now it is extra cutting if you're okay with extra cutting, but the dog ears are already cut for you. You don't have to think about it. It's not going to be rocket science. It's not going to stand out significantly or whatever. It's just quite literally that simple. All right. So the one thing I want to make sure of is that I have triangles going one direction and then I have triangles going the opposite direction. Okay. That's the only thing that you need to really make sure of when you are putting that together. If you do get, disoriented or you pick things up and forgot where you were, that's what you were looking for. Okay, and then again, for the outside pieces of this block, we're just lining up those raw edges. And we are just going to sew right along there. Okay. So now when I bring this over and I open these up, everything is exactly the way that it needs to be. Glenda's asking Candace where she lives, because Glenda's in Banks, Alabama, and she's worried about all the trees around her house. Yeah, I would be too. You're going to have a lot of wind there. If nothing else, you're going to have wind and rain, which is never a fun combination. We get a lot of wind here. We're used to the wind, but we don't get, we get 55 plus, but we don't get like 100 usually. It would be a severe high wind warning day. We are under a fire weather warning right now. So conditions are just right that a little thing could spark a fire, especially like dry lightning, but we don't even have clouds. So, that's the extent of our weather here. Now, when you're doing these center seams, does it really matter which direction you press? No. You can go one way or the other. I do recommend choosing a direction and sticking with it, but it really doesn't matter. Especially if you're going to rotate the blocks. If you stick with the same direction for every one that you assemble, so if you assemble these all, one at one time, chain piecing like I typically do, as long as you are pressing them all the same direction, will it really matter? No. And then because you can rotate these blocks, it won't make a huge difference. Okay, so now you guys can see, because I can pick this up. So this is my swirl fabric. This is my coral swirl, and it goes into a coral swirl. So there's my inside, my gold print navy, and my silver print navy. There's my gold print navy of this coral, the mottled coral, and my silver print navy of the mottled coral. Then my speckled print with the gold and speckled print with the silver. And then polka dots with the gold and polka dots with the silver. You can. I don't, but you can. Judy says she's back. Welcome back. That was a quick trip. Yeah, you can press all of the seams open. I don't bother. This quilt does not have a lot that has to necessarily match. You are going to be matching some seams, but it's not super bad. But you definitely can if you want. Glenda says, beautiful fabric. Thank you. Now, when it comes to pressing these longer seams, you can press those in opposite directions as well. You can also press open, whichever option suits you. The hardest thing with this is getting those chisels done. That is quite literally the hardest part of this. And then making sure that your layout stays the way that you want it. Okay? Now, you guys are going to laugh at me. I did not notice this, but I flipped my seam halfway through. And that's still going to lay just fine in the finished quilt. So it's not that big of a deal. You cannot spin that seam. Ask me how I know. I've made so many of these, but I've never been able to spin that seam. So, and with as many of these as I've made, it has never actually mattered if I pressed one direction or a different direction. So you can go either way with it. All right, so I'm going to put this up here. And we're going to get a couple more of these assembled because I've got that stack. We're going to go ahead and assemble all of those. Candace says, Glenda, she lives in Peachtree City, Georgia, south of Atlanta. All the pine trees are what we are concerned about. Yeah, because they don't handle the wind very well. Judy says, my dogs now will have food. Just need to make sure they didn't run out with all this nasty weather. I completely understand. We just had to go, I had to check prices all across the city. to see what prices we were looking at for my dog's food, because we were going to run out and couldn't afford to run out. Could not afford to run out. He kind of needs that food. All right. So again, I have to fix my pressing on these. Okay. So I'm going to press these towards the outside. Now, if you do press these open, I guess that would save you some time. If you are comfortable pressing all of these chisels open, you absolutely could. I never have. And every last quilt that I have done like this, and this is, all right, that's one. There's 2, 3, 4. This will be 5 or 6 for this quilt pattern. And I've never pressed them open. I've never bothered. So it's not been an issue. Judy says, Candace, we got rid of the pine trees about 10 years ago. No longer have to worry about them. Yeah, those pine trees cause a lot of damage when they fall. They cause a lot of damage. All right. So again, it doesn't matter which one you put going which direction. I mean, I could swap them and go this direction if I wanted to, but then my dark is on the inside. And I want my dark on the outside. That is the one thing that having it up on your wall in a block format, even without piecing it, that is one thing that having that in place will help with, is because you now have a reference to look at every time you go to put one of these together. Because we're now ready for the next 6 patch. It's quite literally that simple. That is all we're doing, is making 6 patches once you have these center pieces together. Glenda says, Judy, I wish I could get rid of trees, but way too many. Yeah, my parents would have that same problem. They have like, I think 5 acres, and they only live on a little bit of their land. They live on, I think, 3/4 of an acre or something. Like, that's all that they have cleared. The rest of their land is all pine trees and woods and such, and I don't know that they would have a way to clear them either. And the trees are good for the environment. They're just not good in the storms. They're not good in the storms. One of my local friends here, she and I were talking about something, and I know what it was. Apparently, she had never in her life seen a tree growing out of the center of a home. An old abandoned home, and it was somewhere in Alabama or Mississippi or something, and her friend had taken a picture of it and sent it to her. And she's like, I couldn't imagine a tree actually growing out of the middle of a home. We can't get any trees to grow here. And I could not help but laugh, because I've seen that so many times, the abandoned homes that have the trees growing out of them. All right, so we have our block assembled into 3 rows. So now we just need to sew these long seams. So, I mean, you can press the seams whichever direction you want to go. You can press them open. I do recommend, if you're going to press them open, I would use pins. I think that's why I don't bother with pressing them open on this. Chloe, she says, well, hello, all popping in on lunch. Yay! All right, inquiring minds want to know, what are you eating for lunch? Live vicariously through Chloe. What is she having for lunch? I'm going to have to grab a very quick lunch after this live to make it to my doctor's appointment on time. All right, I'm going to try to make sure I don't rotate my seam halfway through. Glenda says that she also lives by a creek and it runs behind her house, so we've had to flood yard. Yeah, I can imagine. Oh, the joys of Alabama. Every state has its own kind of hiccup kind of issue. And that is definitely Hallmark, Alabama. It's either you flood or you have trees falling or anything like that. It's all kinds of fun. All right. Okay, yeah, that's still... I was panicking for a second because I was overthinking what I shouldn't overthink. All right. So now we have our second block assembled. How cool is that? That goes together. Once you have all of these center pieces put together, the entire block goes together really, really fast. Now, before anyone asks, if you see that your fabric is shadowing behind because you've used a darker background or a darker fabric is behind a lighter fabric, that would be an incredibly good point for pressing seams open. Okay? But most of the time, you're not going to see that happen. I think if you were using some very, very lightweight fabric, you might see that a little bit more. And you might also see it more if you were using like white or really, really light cream or something like that. All right, so now we have another block. Glenda says, I don't normally stress over weather unless it's something major. I don't blame you. I don't stress over it either. I grew up stressing over weather, so no, I'm not going to do it now. Not going to do it now. All right, so that's 2 blocks completely done, aside from the one I did earlier that I need to fix. All right, so here we go with another one. And same process as before. If you guys are catching me doing it, as soon as I lay these down, I'm double checking my wall to make sure that these are in the right order for this center section here. Okay? So, you know, I recommend you guys do it because it's something that absolutely helps me. All right, so these 2 are the ones I've got to fix on the pressing that I did not press the correct direction. It's all my fault. All my fault. Glenda says, I can just see that quilt in batiks. Oh my gosh, this would be fabulous in batiks. Absolutely fabulous in batiks. Batiks, could you imagine... Could you imagine doing it white and black and then maybe do red or, you know, a focus color for your backgrounds? Because then you could turn the blocks and it'd be yin yang, so to speak. I don't know who all's into the yin yang type stuff, but I could see that being a fabulous option too. But yeah, batik, oh my gosh, this would be fantastic in batiks. It already creates the movement for you, and then you're adding the additional movement of the batiks. Because batiks just have a movement about them. They're not, even though they are a flat fabric, they're not like minky or something like that. They're a flat fabric, but they create so much movement in their patterns. It's just, that would be amazing. That would be absolutely amazing. I would love to see this done in batiks. I might have to make this another time. Just make one for myself finally. Because I've kind of hung on to this one as the one for myself. When I quilted it, I used a embroidery design, quilting design that quilted really, really tiny. So it's micro quilted. If you guys can tell, it's like, I mean, it's micro quilted. Been thinking about different colorways. My mind is running away. There you go. So now you just got to decide if you want the full size doing it 4 blocks across and 4 blocks down and getting 48 inches. The free version is, it comes out 40 inches using the measurements I gave you. And it's 25 blocks for that one. So this one is 16 blocks and it comes out 48 inches square. The other one, the free version, comes out, I can't think. The free version comes out 40 inches square and it's 25 blocks. So you are making more blocks, but they are definitely smaller. So it's entirely up to you which version you go with. But both versions are published. If you have any questions, comments, or issues with the patterns, please reach out to me. Please, please, please reach out to me. Chloe says, that is the fun part, right, Glenda? I agree. I agree. So this one, obviously, this one is blue and teal and grays. And they were all part of the same line from Northcott Fabrics. Northcott was doing a challenge, design a quilt using these fabrics, and they apparently didn't fall in love. But that's okay. You guys are falling in love with it, so that is perfectly fine. It was ahead of its time. That's what I'm going to tell myself. It was ahead of its time. When I did it again, like my second time doing this pattern, I made it was purple and gold. It was purples and golds, and it was a baby quilt, and they wanted me to use the t-shirts they wore during the gender reveal. They were all stained with pink. They wanted me to use that on the back. So that one was purples and golds. And the next time I did it, I don't believe I did it again until I was doing for my nephew's family. So this is the pattern that my nephew's family is getting exclusively for their daughters. So I'm not playing around with patterns. I'm not doing anything funky. They are all getting the same pattern, but they're all getting their own fabrics. So my oldest great niece over there, or in that nephew's family, she got a queen size version of this in purples and navies. That's where my test blocks came out from, because I had leftovers after making a queen size version of this. And then the middle child, the first baby coming along, that prompted the quilt making for my nephew's family. Hers was also coral and navy. That was the colors that they were choosing for the baby. And so hers is also a coral and navy quilt, but it's different corals. And the gold print navy that's in this quilt is very, very, very similar to the coral print navy, or the gold print navy that's in the older two sisters quilts. Glenda says, yes, it is, Chloe. I love that I'm able to see the results before I make something. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that I can give you guys these opportunities to, expand what you're working on, give you guys some inspiration, maybe give you guys a little bit of stress. I'm sorry, I'm passing it along. But give you guys a little bit of stress because, I got to, right? I got to. All right, I'm moving that one up so I can add this one. And I am currently pressing, when I put these outer side seams on, I'm currently pressing all of those down or away from the center. You can adjust how you're doing that, okay? You can play with it, finagle it, all of that kind of thing. Okay, so don't feel like you have to sit with it and keep everything the exact way that I'm showing. Glenda says, sometimes I fly by the seat of my pants, but not too often. I do entirely too often. I will just admit it. I do it. I absolutely do it. So I'm getting my next stack. Yay! And we got one more block after this. and then we'll go over the plan for how I'm going to lay this out. Chloe says, yes, so nice. I want to use the colors. My oldest daughter likes indigo and green. Ooh. She's in debate about the background color for the triangles. Ah. That, you know, something like this light gray behind me, the grays behind me would work really well because those are so distinctive. Now, you could, I'm trying to think. Indigo and green. Trying to think what I would see going with them. I personally don't like yellow, but some people would say yellow would go really well with those two colors. But what you could do is, and this is going back to the planning, so you guys will have to take in, yeah, grays are very nice. You'll have to take into account if you are changing colors halfway through, that you make some alterations to it. Okay, if you were to do this row, of course you've got your indigo and green. You could actually do a different shade of green for this one, and then when you come to this one, do a different shade of indigo and do a different shade of green. And then I would definitely choose a very, very neutral for your background for these triangles. So keep all of these the same colors. But if you did bring in additional colors, you could absolutely, change the colors per row and give it even more definition, if you will. Still have to pick the shade of green. Yeah. There's so many greens out there. So many greens. Yeah, I could see doing that. It's just the biggest challenge is going to be that, oh, that one's already pressed right, or I've already done it. One or the other. The biggest problem that I would have is just it's not going to match the same fabric requirements. So you will end up with a little bit of extra fabric. But who doesn't like extra fabric? Is there anyone in the chat that does not like extra fabric? But yeah, this pattern scales up nicely. The purchase version, these blocks are 12-inch finished. So they're currently 12.5 because they're not sewn into the final quilt. But they will be 12 inches finished. And the die numbers, all the die numbers, and the templates are in the purchase version. So if you want to make it 12 inches, everything that you need is in the purchase version. If you want to make the blocks smaller, that is the free version. The blocks will be 8-inch finished. So you'll have to make more of them to adjust the size of your quilt. The human eye can see the most shades of the color green. Oh, I did not know that. I guess that makes sense because the most common form of color blindness is reds and blues. No, it's reds and greens, isn't it? It's red and green. Because the traffic lights don't make sense to people with color blindness. The sideways ones especially, oh my gosh. Sideways positioned street lights are really hard on people who are colorblind. I could not imagine trying to figure that mess out. That would not be super fun. That would not be super fun. I am glad that I am not colorblind. There's a lot of accommodations that I would make for myself if I were colorblind, but I'm really glad that I'm not and that I can appreciate all the different colors and shades of everything. So, oh. And I think this quilt, even with the one behind me and even the corals. The corals aren't that distinctive, super distinctive from each other. But I think the movement in this quilt would be even pleasing for someone who is colorblind, because it would provide them with just that slight movement without being completely washed out. I'm not sure how good it would be for someone who is completely colorblind and can only see grays. I don't know if shades of gray would work really well for this or not. I haven't taken a picture of this colorway, these exact fabrics for this colorway, to see if it would work very well in grayscale. But if you have some vision of color, I think that this would still be a pleasing quilt to look at. Chloe says the movement is lovely. Thank you. Now, I do recommend to keep that movement going. I do recommend a quilting design along these lines. If you're going to free motion quilt, put a meander, put an all-over design. Don't do custom quilting. If you wanted to create more movement, you could do custom quilting, but then you may lose the custom quilting when you step back to look at the whole quilt as it is. So keep that in mind. All right, so most of these I have pressed the outside towards, I've pressed the seam towards the outside. This one I'm going to press towards the inside. And I'm going to show you here in just a second that you're going to, I mean, if you press them all open, you won't have this problem, I guess. So I guess that'd be another reason for for pressing open, Glenda. But a lot of the others I pressed towards the outside, but you will want to press half of them towards the inside if you're worried about, you know, your seams lining up. If you are pressing just one direction. Like I said, the only thing that I press on this quilt that I honestly press open every time is that those center point pieces. Because those, I want them to lay as flat as possible, and I don't want it to pull towards one point or another. All right. So we're going to put this one up here. All right, and then we're going to do one more, I think. I got time. Yeah, I got time. We're going to do one more. Because I definitely have to stop this live on time, you guys. Can't run over. Doctor's appointments, you know, the doctors can walk in 20 minutes late and everything's okay. We walk in 20 minutes late and they tell us we have to reschedule. So I cannot walk in late to the doctor today. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to leave on time. You know, I hate rules. There's only so many rules in quilting. And then there's all the unspoken social rules. We're going to see what my doctor thinks of my wrist. See whether or not they're going to give my wrist a steroid shot. See if that'll help it. See if I'm able to have a steroid shot in it. And then go from there. And pay a fee. Yeah, right. We go to see somebody who is perpetually late and we pay to see them. Then, heaven forbid, we are 5 minutes late. We have to pay a no call, no show fee and pay another fee to see them again. And this is my skepticism for the day. You guys don't normally get a whole lot of skepticism out of me, but doctors are the one profession where they can call what they do practice. And we don't bat an eye at it. I'm not sure I really want somebody who is practicing. You know, I want somebody who's perfected it, not somebody who's practicing. Oh, the complexities of life. Maybe maybe on my birthday, I'll start having answers for all of it. Oh, this is my answer to life and the universe year, something like that. This is the year of the answer. I saw I have a friend that he and I share back and forth a whole bunch of just like funny pictures. Kind of like Ian and Becca. You know, we're sitting there quite literally just texting back and forth, nothing but pictures. And it's just funny stuff. I sent him one, I think it was yesterday or today. And these two women are talking. And this one is saying, "You look fabulous. What's your secret?" And she says, "I just tell everyone that I'm 10 years older than I actually am." And I like that idea. You know, if I start telling people that, you know, I'm so many years older than I actually am, maybe I'll look even better than I do. I'll look really good for my age. I'll look 10 years younger. Oh, Chloe says, interesting thought. Yeah, about the doctor, right? Right. I think this weekend during the Zoom retreat, I'm going to pull out the calendar that I just got. I just picked it up yesterday, and I haven't even opened it. That's how new it is. It's a little bitty wall calendar. Like, yeah, little bitty. Like, I can't even do the right size. Like, it's that big. It's not big. And it has a holiday on every day of the year. It might be Eat a Bowl of Ice Cream Day, or it could be, you know, the Talk Like a Pirate Day or something like that. You know, that those are a little bit more common, but, you know, these might be obscure, like, it's check the dates on things in your freezer day, or something like that. I don't know what the holidays are, but we're going to find out together. We're going to find out what some of the holidays are. So I have made a decision as well, if you guys have been following along on the channel, that I am doing Land That I Love. It is a quilt out of the Celebrate with Quilts book by Alyssa Alexander and Susan Ake. And we are going to have Kathy from My Hobby Home over here joining us for that live series. And what I'm going to do is we're going to do a little change up starting in November. I'll do more announcements about it starting next month. So starting this upcoming Tuesday with October 1st. We'll start doing a lot of updates about it. But I'm going to change my Saturday mornings to a Thursday evening. So we'll have a Tuesday evening, a Thursday evening, and a Sunday evening. And then I will throw in some random Saturday mornings when I can. But, you know, it will be what it will be. It won't be every time or not. Laura says, I just bought that book. Perfect! Yay! You will have a blast if you want to come sew along with us. We're starting in November. Plan to have it done at the end of July next year. So, that is kind of the plan. Alright, so you guys see how this is coming out. Let me get out of the, or stop making a shadow. Let's put it that way. Let me stop making a shadow. And I'm actually going to take this down real quick. I'm going to move it down. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. Alright, so this is the first block that I sewed. This is before you guys got on the live with me. Alright, so this is my lighter coral. This is the one with the speckled and the polka dots, okay? I'm going to take my lighter coral, and that's going to butt up against my coral up here. That is how you create this pattern right here. Okay, if you want the colors to follow, so you've got your teal right here coming down, your dark blue coming down, That's how you do that, okay? So you do your coral into your coral, your speckled on the outside. So coming down here, I would put my speckled next, okay? So that's one layout option. Andrew says she gives up. She's sewn the same block 5 times, wrong sides together. She's working on 1 hour of sleep, so it is nap time. Yes, it is nap time. Yes, it is. All right, so you've got the light coral, light coral, light coral, dark, dark, and dark, okay? So when you come over to add your next blocks, they are going to line up row by row, okay? But you're going to do the same thing that you just did, okay? So your corals touched here, your light corals touched here, so your light corals are going to form a 4 patch right here. Okay, so your dark corals or your focus prints are going to do the same thing up here. It's going to form a 4 patch right here, and then your coral is going to continue here. Okay, so that is this layout without the top, the half blocks. Okay, if you want to do the half blocks, your goal, should you choose to accept it, oh, you guys can't see that up there. All right, I'm going to move this over so it's out of the way. Okay, so you've got your dark coral here. So just like your dark corals matched up here, you want to match up your dark corals here as well. Okay, so what you would do, and this is why I said it's important to just assemble these sections first. Assemble this section right here, because then if you want to do a half block here and then put a half block up top, you absolutely can. You have the flexibility to do it. Laura says that she didn't see anything wrong, but agree it's time for a nap. Oh, no, it's not here, but she was sewing as well. Glenda says in 2010, she was 53 and the doctors told me I had the body of a 63-year-old. So now at 63, I guess I have the body of a 100-year-old. So funny to me, I'm only as old as I feel some days and some young. Yeah, there you go. All right, so here's something I want to show you guys that is not in... Ooh. Andrea, you would have to ask the difficult question. She's wondering how my blocks would look on point. I will do that here in just a second. So here's the other thing that you can do. Okay, this is not something that I've done in any of my other quilts, and this baby is going to get this, okay? Okay, so I'm going to move this down. So what I'm going to make sure of, this is my polka dot from my dark. It's gonna butt up against itself. This is my mottled from my light. It's gonna butt up against itself. Okay. And then I'm gonna come up here, and my swirls are gonna butt up against each other. Oh, wrong swirls. That's my outer swirls. This is why. Ooh, I even put these in wrong. I'm glad I put this up here. All right, there's that, and let's come up here with the correct pieces. So we're gonna come up here with my swirls and my mottled that goes with it on the center. And then we're going with the swirls on the outside. Now, I want you to keep in mind, if you are doing these half blocks, okay? These are the corals that match this part of the block. This piece matches this colorway, okay? So you're not using everything from the one colorway. You have to have one piece that is not from that colorway. Okay? So now, instead of having one set of movement, okay, you've got your center block set of movement, you now have a secondary movement. you have movement here as well. Okay? You do not have that here. Here in this quilt, your background here, this light gray, is a square. It forms a square. It forms an easy to rest background. This forms additional movement. Okay? And I think for this baby, we are going to do the additional movement. Would call that commas and apostrophes, right? That's kind of what I originally planned. That's kind of what this one will look like, more so than this. But the other sisters got this layout without the half. They got, it was full blocks. So this baby is going to get the offset version. So they're all still the same pattern. They're all still the same blocks. They're all still the same units. However, it is a matter of whether you do a half block and create a bauble, or create the extra movement here in that center piece, or whether you lay them all out together and all of that. Glenda says, that's what I just thought, Andrea. Yeah, I've been thinking that for years. I really have. I mean, when I first did this one, I thought commas and apostrophes. Like that was absolutely exactly where my mind was with it. But then I realized it created baubles, like it created balls, like decorative Christmas ornament balls. So that's where the name came from. This quilt was originally named Royalty Bauble because the first person that it was a gift for, her name is Adelaide, which means royalty. So I named it Royalty Baubles. So, but this pattern I've redone so many different times, but it comes out beautifully no matter which way you do this. All right, so Andrea asked an important question, and we are going to indulge because we got time to indulge. All right, so I'm going to pull all these off and set them aside. And are you guys ready to see what this looks like? All right. So we're going to start, let me see, I want to make sure you guys can see this in the camera. So let me bring it down just a hair. All right. So now I will say this, the pattern that I've issued out does not include setting triangles. So if you do decide to put this on point, if you were to create another block to do it, you will end up cutting it in half. However, when you go to set this on point, you're going to need to cut above the halfway point. So this is my point here. You need to cut a 1/4 inch above that. And you're going to end up losing half of a block. So keep that in mind. If you do decide that you want this pattern to go all the way to the edge, you are going to lose some of your pattern. All right, so I'm going to follow the same pattern I was doing before with the 4 patches. So we're going to end up with squares. But this is that same dark coral going here. And let's see. We've got the light coral here. This is creating an interesting pattern, Andrea. I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked. So the one thing to make sure of when you do something like this, make sure that your outside pieces are going to line up and they're creating that pattern that you're looking for. So you want to make sure that they are creating that square unless you're going to do an offset. Andrea says the designer in me is always seeing different designs. Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you. I just have never thought about putting this on point before. And I do have enough fabric I could do that with this, but I'm not going to. Not for this baby. So that is this design on point. Now I have enough pieces I can lay another one up here. So let's do that so you guys can see how that goes. All right. Brain. Where's my brain? All right. So this piece will go there. All right. And that goes there. It's like, I know how to do this. I've done this so many times. I know how to do this. I just have to brain through it. So, I mean, you definitely could do this. And it definitely creates another unique pattern format. But I did not include directions on how to flip this on point and what to do with those setting triangles. So just keep that in mind. Instead of losing half block, you could put background triangles. Yeah, you absolutely could. And that would be a great way to use it too. So background triangles would absolutely be a good way to do that. This one, the movement created when you are matching these up, if you notice now that I've got this last one down here, this dark coral is going straight down the quilt and the light coral is 2, and then we're back to the dark coral. So it does create a different pattern to it, and instead of your squares being on point, they are square. So it creates a unique pattern. I would not sash it. I think if you sash this, you lose some of the movement and some of the effect. It's going to look a little odd, just in my opinion. It's not that it's not still going to be gorgeous, but it's definitely different. Ooh, you know what? I did put 2 in the wrong spot down here. It's like, there's something out. There's something odd about that. Okay, there we go. So, you'll have the pattern coming up and down the corridors where the outside pieces join. But you definitely could do background triangles to do the setting if you decided you wanted to put it on point. Yeah, it's definitely something to play with. But yeah, I'm going to rotate it around. It looks abstract angles to me. Yeah, it absolutely does. Now, that brings up an interesting point. If you want to do this super scrappy, yeah, Christmas colors would work too. If you wanted to do this super scrappy, just pulling from your stash what you can cut from your stash, whether you're doing this size or you're doing the smaller, the free pattern size. It doesn't matter which pattern size you're doing, but if you wanted to cut, instead of cutting all of your, Glenda says I like the original way. I think I do too. But you could honestly do this version scrappy, super scrappy. Do one set of green here, one set of green here, one here, do different greens and do different reds and maybe do golds as the background, golds and silvers as the background. That would give you a much different effect as well, or whites and silvers would look really pretty with it. Yeah, there's a lot that you can do with it. I'm definitely in the ballpark of I love it, straight up and down, but it is up to you. Andrea says she's going to play with it when she has more time. Absolutely. You know where to find the patterns. Just give me credit if you're reusing my pattern, or send people to come purchase the original pattern to base yours off of, if you're going to issue out a new pattern. But yeah, so that is the Bauble Quilt. So again, this one is a 3x3 quilt. So this is probably about 36 inches square before the borders. This, when I put it back on the straight and narrow path, it will be a 48-inch square quilt with 16 blocks, and that will be straight up and down. Okay, yeah, absolutely, Andrea. And then So the purchase pattern is 48 inches square. The free version is 40 inches square. Of course, you can absolutely size that up. The purchase pattern is 12-inch blocks. The free version is 8-inch blocks. So you can download either or both of those, patterns to play around with, to get some time in with. But I'm glad I was able to bring this to you guys and show you guys, something that has worked really well for me, and it's a lot of fun. It absolutely is a lot of fun. So I'm going to go ahead and get off of here, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being here for the class series. If you guys have not signed up for the retreat for this weekend, if you want to sign up, go visit Tuesday, Sunday, or Saturday video from this past week, and there will be a sign up link there for the Zoom retreat. It is free to attend this time. So if you want to attend, please do it. Please do it. Please do it. It will not be broadcast on YouTube, so you don't have to worry about your information getting out anywhere beyond the locals. Glenda says will be the first of the month when I purchase. Oh, no worries. I would have to wait as well, so you're good. I totally understand. But yeah, so, that is, it's so much fun to put stuff like this together, and, come hang out this weekend if you've got power, if you've got electricity, if you've got, time to kill, and you're just, needing a place to come hang. Absolutely come hang out. And then this upcoming Tuesday will be Sew and Tell. So if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already hit like or unlike for this video, please hit one or the other. Let YouTube know that you're interacting with my channel. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Have